Coral Island is ripping off Stardew Valley. According to the Chronically Online people, that is. Coral Island is most definitely not a direct copy of Stardew Valley. Coral Island is beyond what a farming simulator should be and has already turned into something quite special. As you can tell, it's tremendously beautiful. The attention to detail is insane. The way objects sway in the wind or birds sit on the roof of a random building, kids are at school playing outside, the world feels alive and it doesn't feel like there are hard-coded timed events happening. It feels like there's so much going on around you. Coral Island is fundamentally a farming simulator, but it has a really big emphasis on fantasy, adventure, and exploring. The premise of the story is about a big oil spill on the island, cleaning up the island, making tough decisions surrounding that. Of course, it has all the main elements that a farming simulator should have. If you've ever played games like Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon, or Stardew Valley, it basically works in the same way. There is farming, of course, and there are romanceable characters, all of which are literally so sexy. Did this game make me feel orny with an H at the front? Yes, it did. I will admit that I did. The farming is intuitive and follows the same kind of Minecraft mechanic of harvesting ores to develop better tools that most games seem to follow these days. The farm itself is literally huge, by the way. There is definitely enough space to do anything you want there. You can fish too. Fishing requires patience, something that I do not have. You can also catch bugs and find collectibles to add to the museum to watch the museum expand. You also have various missions and quests along the way. Some are important, others aren't. At first they kind of act like a tutorial, but they soon ramp up a bit and feel a little bit more meaningful. I like the way that there's always something to achieve, whether that be completing a mission or working on the farm, the harvesting things, dealing with the overarching storyline, and you have the freedom to choose how you spend your day in the game and what you focus on. Nothing is really time specific, and I really like that it gives you the sandbox style of freedom to do what you want, but with at least some challenge and direction to make it feel meaningful. The game includes a cavern or dungeon crawling mechanic, and I know I said I shouldn't be directly comparing it to Stardew Valley, but it has very similar mechanics, almost identical. There are different caves to explore at different levels, which all have different looks. The full release may have the ability to turn off combat in the cavern, but they are just plans by the developers, and we don't actually know if it's going to be implemented in that way yet. As with these kinds of games, there are festivals. We only have a handful in early access, but there should be 9 in total when the game is fully released. They aren't the most fun, if I'm being honest. They look really beautiful, but it's just the same old, same old. I would love for them to include more gameplay elements to make these festivals more meaningful, such as relationship events or something, but we're just gonna have to wait and see how it turns out in the final release. Now, the world itself is huge. Luckily, there is a map to find everything and everyone whenever you want, so that's always useful. The game will introduce a waypoint system, but I believe it hasn't been implemented fully yet, because obviously the world is so big. In updates, they might randomly add some new places or things to do, so we can only imagine that the world will expand a lot by full release. But right now, the game isn't complete. It's available in early access before the final release. They're still adding content and making the game whole. It's buggy, it's glitchy, and it's unpolished. There are teething issues, there is animation lag. So that begs a question, should I buy Coral Island now in early access or wait until the full release? On the subject of bugs, there was a lot of animation lagging happening now and then. Sometimes the game would randomly start lagging if I went from one place to the next too fast. The game doesn't actually have loading screens anywhere on the outside and only inside buildings, so I don't know if that's what's caused it. It wasn't major, not at all, but it did get distracting and frustrating at times. The game also suffered from random UI issues on rare occasions where the menu wouldn't close or the game would freeze after clicking the UI, so I had to exit the whole game. As it's in early access, the game does let you hard reset to the next in-game day if you do get totally stuck. And of course, as it is in early access, the game can't be criticized for having bugs because that's the whole point of an early access release. But of course, it can sway your decision in terms of whether or not you want to buy it early. For me personally, the bugs and glitches were not a major issue. I could still enjoy the game a lot, but they did cause some frustration. So I wouldn't let it stop you if you want it now based on that, but you should be aware that it does occur on the odd occasion. It's also important to note the game isn't complete in terms of story. There are many unfinished quests yet to be added, narratives and storylines either not added or not complete yet. If you purchase a game in early access, you are not getting a full experience, you're getting a taster of what the final game will be. The early access version currently includes the first in-game year, meaning there isn't really anything to do after that first in-game year. To give you a taster of some of the major features to be added, there will be more NPC interactions, completed storylines, house exterior customization, more festivals, up to a total of 9, a multiplayer mode, and mermaids with a Mermaid Kingdom area, which sounds quite exciting. According to the developers, it will take at least a year or maybe even more depending on player feedback to complete the game. For now, I would say I've had a really fun experience. I've done a Let's Play series of the game on my channel. It was short-lived. The game definitely has replayability value even though it's in early access, and although I decided to kill off my Let's Play series of the early access after just 3 episodes, I do still play this game a lot in my free time. It's chilled and cozy, just like any simulation game of this kind should be, and even though it's in early access, it still feels like there's so much to explore and secrets to find, and that's fundamentally why I really like the game. It has a mysterious charm about it that actually reminds me of adventure RPG games like Legend of Zelda. It's an incredibly unique experience that doesn't just feel like a cash-grabbing knockoff of other popular farming sims. It feels like a unique game in many rights. With that said, if you're like a die-hard of these kind of farming sim games, the early access of Coral Island has a lot of entertainment value. Of course, you are not paying for a final game, so if money is an issue, maybe hold off. As for me personally, it doesn't feel polished at all, and there just simply isn't enough going for it right now to be like, buy it now, immerse yourself in the game, because it's just not like that right now. I think the worst thing you can do is invest time in a game for it to bug out or at least not be finished, and then have to recomplete everything all over again once it's actually out. So for the more casual players out there, I do not recommend getting this game in early access based on my brutally honest opinion. But if you are like me and you are impulsive and you have no self-control and you buy it now anyway, like I did, you won't regret it, but you won't be like, wow, this is amazing. You'll be like, oh, this is quite cool, actually. I mean, that's quite a British way of putting it, but obviously you won't say it exactly like that, but I'm sure you're getting the general gist of what I'm inferring here. Coral Island is a great game, which already has great gameplay in early access. I'm tremendously excited for the full release. If you want a taster of the gameplay, feel free to check out my mini LP series. No, it's not finished, but it's still a very fun series, and it may help to give you a taster of the game as it's like right now if you can't or don't want to purchase it yet. I will leave a link to that right here. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.